Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see you here today. I hope you really love this. My name is Leah Fink, and I'd like to welcome you to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results. We are a LinkedIn Live series where every week we're discussing how your mindset in different areas of your life and your business will impact the outcomes you get. At All Thrive, our goal is strengthening people, solidifying relationships, and changing lives. We do this by running impactful self-development and mental health workshops. I am so happy today to be joined by Brent Keough, who is an expert in marketing. And Brent, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Brent. I'm the co-founder of the Full Prism Group. I'm more of the out there and talk to everybody kind of guy. Came from the sales world back when the door-to-door world was popular, and adapted with the times. To now where we focus on more automation for our companies, and more than likely, like with this whole COVID situation, is bringing people into the digital world and then getting them to embrace it and find simplicity within their businesses, and then getting them focused on more of their why behind their business. So it started out as, I sold to learn how to make money, and then I sold to learn how to solve problems, and then I sold to learn how to build companies. And that's the nutshell in myself.
Well, and I love that you do that personally, because I think I'm on the other side of entrepreneurs where we have our great idea and we love the idea, but we're not so used to the selling piece. So to have someone like you be able to come in and say, oh, actually, I understand this part, so we can embrace that idea, like you said, is just so important to me.
It's super important. I mean, you see a lot of more TED Talks now out there where they're talking about the why behind your business rather than the what behind your business. And more than ever, I mean, people are bought into the story of how you got to that point, not what you're promoting or selling. And and being from the East Coast, growing up in Newfoundland, so shout out to my East Coasters. How'd you get on, boy? Sorry. It was all about community and storytelling, because we grew up in a community that was passed down from generation to generation. And there's something to be said about that. You can't take that away from somebody. And going into the big cities, I found that bringing that was one of my biggest strengths into getting to know people and build my networks across Canada and North America over the years.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of community too, you are a community resource today. So if anyone who's watching this live, or if you happen to be watching this later and have any questions, we'd love for you to add those, and we can certainly address them. Whether, like I said, that we are talking about, which I was so excited to have you on, is I've been talking a lot about boundaries recently because I have an upcoming workshop, and I really love the perspective you brought to boundaries, because you're obviously coming from a place of understanding sales and how people use those skills. And you actually mentioned the opposite side of having to learn about your boundaries in a hard way, unfortunately. So I would love it if you can share a little bit of that story with people, because I think it's so relevant to people right now.
Well, I've said this to a lot of people in my career. I wasn't a born natural in sales. I took a lot of getting out of my comfort zone, pulling back the onion layers, as they call it. And it's never going to be an easy thing to do that. But it was all about the development. And, one of my original mentors, leaders out there, Joe, if you're seeing this, love you, man. He brought resilience to me. And, he said, you chose this path. And if you want to continue down this path, you're going to have to learn how to develop things that a lot of people aren't going to develop. And, if you're going out there talking to people every day, door to door, strangers, you got to be able to learn that not everybody that opens the door is going to be welcoming to you. So, I mean, as a guy out there, I used to teach guys, you have to take 2 steps back from the door and not stand with your 2 legs like in front of you. You got to stand more sideways, right? Because this is confrontation. This is, I'm giving you your respect at your door. And because of that, people were more willing to open up and talk to me, which meant that when I'm showing them something, I'm moving a little bit closer to them. And now they're becoming part of the experience rather than, oh, it's some salesperson trying to sell me something. And I worked in the charity sector, so it was very different than your vacuum salesman world, because a lot of the charities we work with were very highly renowned. And if there was a complaint that went out on our behalf, we will hear about it. So, so you have to learn how to be a customer service representative out door to door before you were a salesperson. Where I used to see people that were doing gas and the vacuum salesman back 18 years ago for Kirby vacuum cleaners, pushing the hard sale and trying to get their foot in the door. And to this day, do you see them coming to your door now? They didn't respect the boundaries of selling, and because of it, they were either kicked out of the door-to-door world, or they were replaced by Amazon. And the same thing goes for the car salesman world. Is 15 years ago they were bragging about the amount of cars that they were selling and taking advantage of the customer, and now they have room out there. So it's the change is always going to happen, and it's all about us being able to respect customers as a customer service agent first, and then focus on the need and solving the problem.
Well, what I really hear with that too is the idea that you as a salesperson created your own boundaries around sales by listening to the boundaries of other people. And that to me is really the key, is because we build our boundaries off a lot of things, right? Our personal values. And if we're willing to compromise those values, then you compromise the boundary, and then you become, that greasy car salesman or the pushy vacuum cleaner salesman. And I believe you even had an experience of supporting people that then didn't honor their own boundaries around selling.
And that's the thing. It's I always make that joke about Star Wars. They all start out as little Padawans, and then they inherit the lightsaber, and then it's all that power that you wield. It can be used both for influential purposes and for manipulation purposes. And we were talking about that yesterday, about emotional selling, and you say, well, isn't that a form of manipulation? I said, well, it's if you know that somebody's going down the path of success and you have been down that path before, and you know where all the winding turns are, where there's the failure and the deterrence that's going to get them from backtracking, I want to get them down that path to success as quick as possible. So, this all starts with education. It's, showing people that this is what I'm doing, this is how long I've been doing it for, and, and this is my why behind it. And if people are open to listening to that, then they're open to expressing their problems. If they're not open to listening to it, then you can see it. You've had meetings with people where it's going to go nowhere, and it's about either addressing it and saying, do you think this is something that we could do together? And if not, who would you recommend? And leaving it at that, and recognizing that not everybody that you get in front of is going to be a yes. Sorry for all the new sales professionals out there. You're going to get rich quick. It's not going to work. You've got to develop yourself out there, and be comfortable with yourself, and not sound like a sales pitchy person. And you've seen it before, where you're having a conversation with somebody, and then all of a sudden they get into what they're talking about, and they change their personality.
Yes.
So from somebody that observes personalities, Leah, like what's your thought process when you see the change in the person?
Well, I think it depends which way that change is going. So you mentioned the why, and I'm very curious after this actually to ask you a little bit too about how you got to your why in this situation, or how you really capitalize on that. But I really do think people are very aware of when it goes from either genuine to disingenuous, or disingenuous to genuine. So in the good circumstance, you meet someone who's maybe nervous about their sales for the first time. And probably a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, newer entrepreneurs, you have that nervousness. And it's only when you start talking, like you said, about the why and the purpose, which once again is based on your values, which is where your boundaries come from, then you start coming, from a heart-centered place, to be honest, from a place of caring and wanting to support someone. Whereas the other way, I think, or I believe that you can really tell that someone is talking genuinely. Maybe there's someone who's very good at relationship, which a lot of salespeople probably have a natural proclivity towards that. Yeah. And they go from this, natural conversation, this is really great. And suddenly out of nowhere, you've met this wall. And they actually went away maybe from the value of connecting with people to this place of greed, or maybe even fear. Maybe there's a component of some sort of, you know, piece they have to meet for their job. So many sales, some requirement there. And you really feel
Pure
that
judgment.
people are very aware. Yeah, pure judgment, totally.
Pure judgment. I mean, you know, I've had people, you open up the door and they give me this up and down look, like in a split second, but like I can tell there's a conversation that has already happened, and I didn't even have to open my mouth.
Yeah.
Right. So body language is a big part of the conversation, and you know, I spend a lot of time observing people's facial reactions, and I'm very open to talk about that, because you know, I value their time, and you know, as an entrepreneur, I'd like to hope that they value mine as well, and it's a mutual respect amongst two business professionals in the industry. And I have a golden rule that, you know, I'm only going to sell to people that need it, not because I want to make money. And that is that was like one of my biggest walls that I had to face in my career, was the fact that, you know, I know how to do this now. Is this what my focus is going to be for the rest of my life? Is knowing that I can just chase money. And I want. One of my mentors said this to me very harshly. He said, Brent, he said, many a millionaire have been buried in the ground. He said, and nobody knows their name. He said, you want motivation in this world, go to a cemetery and look at the hyphen between the start and the beginning and the end of their life. And sometimes that's what it was. That's all it was just that little line that happened. And, you know, he said, if you're focusing on money, he said, that's what you're going to leave behind. And, you know, it was one of those, you got to dig deep and realize that, you know, am I going to be a salesperson in the industry? Am I going to be an influencer within the sales industry to evolve it? Like Zig Ziglar brought sales as a profession into the industry. So, you know, it's a defining point. And, you know, I spent my whole career training salespeople how to do this. Now I'm training entrepreneurs how to do this. Right. But there's no difference. Right.
Wow. Well, what I love is from that, you both shared your journey, which was how you got to decide what was important to you and what's not. And you can clearly hear, or I can clearly hear, the values and the importance of what you're saying to you. And it also sounds like you have very clear boundaries about these pieces too, right? I won't sell to create this situation. I won't sell to someone who doesn't need my product. I mean, I would even say too that it's nice sometimes to hear a no versus a maybe. A maybe is, am I pushing this person in a bad situation and they actually don't want it, but they're just not wanting to say it? Or is it that they actually need it and I'm trying to help them, you know, come to that decision? But a no it's a nice clear boundary sometimes.
It is, but I mean, even a no, it's being understanding of the no and saying, no worries. If you need anything else, you'll let us know. Our no's, we were talking about it earlier today. My partner Leslie had one that said no 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden messaged her last week and said, hey, my bookkeeper just you know, up and left. Can I gotta get a bookkeeper in here? And she's like, absolutely. So it's this whole no, not now. It's I don't anticipate the sale. I anticipate the experience with the person and the journey with the person, because I'm a person that is extroverted. I love getting out and meeting new people and sharing experiences. But most importantly, my mind works like an architect. It's all grid for me. And, you know, if I can connect all the dots and start solving all these problems, people will start coming back and asking more questions. And you've seen that, you know, as somebody that's networked with myself for so long. It's, I don't go in and sell. I go in and I bring energy into the room, and energy is such a powerful thing to bring into a room, especially when it's brought towards something good. People can get behind that versus get behind a product or a service. So this is why a lot of people get lost in the sales world, is because they don't light themselves up. You know, they don't put the energy out there and put that extra momentum out there, but also be aware of other people's reactions to what you're saying, and pivoting that accordingly towards matching and mirroring people. And you know, sometimes I'm very energetic, and you've seen this, Leah. But if I see somebody that's timid, I'm not going to overwhelm that person, because I know that's their boundary, and self-awareness will teach me to I have to bring it down, talk a little bit lower, get on their level, crack a little joke, get them to smile, right? Warm up, and then go from there. But that's not about, it's not about me being aware of that. It's about making the other person aware that my intentions are purely for helping them get to where they need to be. And if they don't have a problem, then I'm not going to go further with it.
Well, you've unintentionally said one of my favorite words, which is intentions, and it's one of my favorites because I actually think we rely too heavily on them. I think we go a lot by your intentions versus your actual impact. And what you actually just talked about, in my mind, was talking about tracking impact. So as you were talking to all these people out in LinkedIn Live land, and they're thinking, well, I want to be an ethical salesperson, I want to respond well to a customer and meet them where they're at, what tips would you give them to start honing those skills?
First things first, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's a very powerful tool to be able to listen twice as much as you talk. And if you're asking questions, make sure they're questions that you're getting information from. Because an inquisitive student that's asking questions is going to be the person that can offer up the solutions more effectively to the customer, which means that they see subconsciously and consciously that you're actually listening to them and caring about their needs versus focusing on the bottom dollar. And most importantly, even if they're a no, keep following up with them, right? If you keep front of mind and they know that you care about them, they're going to come back to you eventually. Or if not, they're going to refer somebody out there to you. And, it's, you get what you put into it. That's basically it in sales, is you get what you put into it. But if you're going out there and you believe in what you're doing, then you're going to be successful with it, as long as you continue to get yourself out there to people.
And would you have any suggestions for people, as I heard that, keep following up with them? I could also see maybe how that could go a little bit wrong if someone's approaching it in the wrong way. How do you approach it, or how would you recommend people approach that follow-up, aside from the value-based piece that you spoke about, trying to help them?
Well, I typically pick it up from where I left off, and I would, reiterate the situation that happened again about solving their problem, and you can hear it in their voice, whether it's on the phone or in Zoom or face to face as well. It's they haven't made that final decision yet. I would say, hey, I completely get it, right? What time would work for you in the near future that I can call you back, right? So I can give you a call back later next week. What time works for you? So I always leave it off with I'll do a follow-up. I'm just going to do a courtesy call just to see how everything's going, right? And if somebody says no, don't worry about it, then to me it's don't bug me anymore. But if they say, yeah, give me a call back next Friday, it means that they're in the middle of something right now, or in the middle of half a dozen things that I am not aware of outside of the transaction that we may potentially do, and it's just not the right time. So, but this is based off of dealing with hundreds of thousands of people and tens of thousands of business owners over the years. It's typically like that. If somebody called you up and you were in the middle of a half a dozen things, and they said, I'll call you back next Friday, and you agreed to it, are you going to be mad at him if he calls you back next Friday, what you agreed on?
No,
but if he called you every other day, you would.
Yes, and that's also a boundary. You've told them what you're going to do, and then you got to stick to it. I'm wondering, with you talking about the follow-up piece, do you have any suggestions, maybe a little trickier, if you have interaction with someone, maybe a potential client, and you feel like you didn't do as good of listening as you should have, or you feel like you missed something and it ends on a note that is not quite what you hoped? Do you have any suggestions for that kind of follow-up?
I would recommend to set up a second meeting with them, and then especially if you feel that you've fumbled on it and they have a partner, suggest set up a second meeting before you push forward with anything, just to make sure you get the partner in there. And while you're doing that, you need to debrief after that meeting, after they leave, and really look at where it went wrong. And then at that point, that's where you want to do that starting point. Be like, I know we talked about it in the last meeting about this. I wanted to focus on the solution, so it was eating at me, so I did this, this, and this. right? So that way we're already leaving it off being like, hey, I'm going to earn your business, so this is why I solved this problem, right? It's, you know, they always say you only get one first impression. It's not true. It's really not. There's some people that just they're in the middle of a million things, and then you come into the meeting, it might have went wrong because all they were doing was thinking about the employee they had just fired. You know, and that's, and it's one of those, you know, when somebody walks into a room, are they really walking in to give me their undivided attention, or are they walking into the room with other things? And that's why in the beginning of me sitting down with somebody, I get to know them. I relate with them, right? What I'm doing is I'm trying to get them to put all of those problems that they've had prior to like coming into the door, coming into Zoom with me. I want them to put them outside the door, right? So that way we can focus on that one or two specific problems that they have in order to get that off their plate. And if they don't see that, then they don't want to get that off their plate because they've got so many other things on their plate, right?
Totally. And
yeah.
And what you've talked about too, which I think is really important and maybe something that can be scarier for business owners, is in a couple places there you were essentially talking about vulnerability, right? The vulnerability of saying, hey, maybe this didn't come across as I hoped, and the vulnerability of building that relationship off the bat and taking responsibility for that. So I think actually that's an interesting boundary for people too, right? You can have firm boundaries and flexible boundaries, and you can be more vulnerable and more invulnerable. And my work is certainly more on the vulnerability side, but as a salesperson, do you feel there's a fair amount of vulnerability in your role?
Yeah, I mean, I probably told my story to more people than Kellogg's Got Cornflakes out there. You know, I learned to be an open book, you know, and as the digital world's become more digital, I've realized that, you know, our story is going to get out there to more and more people. But and that's a big thing about entrepreneurs is, you know, you take very successful entrepreneurs in this world, like they're looking at where they started. And I look at Tony Robbins, you know, $17 in his pocket, giving it to, you know, somebody that needed it more, and, you know, and going out and building a legacy. Like, you know, that's the kind of story where it's like, you know, we know what he's doing out there right now, but right, we want to know where it started. And, you know, we all start somewhere, and it's all about the journey. And, you know, as a sales professional, you know, I've worn out more dress shoes than most people walking that beaten path down that road. But I did it because, you know, there was a why that I wanted to be able to understand people more than the average person, and be able to break down those walls. And not in a bad way, but in a way where, you know, I know entrepreneurs and I know what their full capabilities are, and I can see it, right? They're just ready to break out and get there. And I'm a firm believer of just being like, here's a sledgehammer, right? Like, let's go. Like, you know, let's speed this process up here and get to where we need to be. Because if I knew then what like I know now, it would be a lot easier. And I think as a sales professional out there, there's no university class for sales 101. It's all marketing and theorized. Like, I'd like to see one day that there would be a sales course out there in university, and professors out there talking about the philosophy behind sales, and talking about the boundaries of it, and, you know, and getting rid of the unethical business practices of sales that still linger out there. But yeah, that's another topic.
Well, so maybe to close, because we're coming up on our time here, if you were to teach Sales 101 and you've got some new students in your class, what would be your either topics or final remarks you'd want to give them as they go out into that world?
I think the first thing, when I started in my career, I learned the 5 steps to a pitch. It's in my course outline as well. It talks about the introduction, the relating part of it, the short story, all about qualifying, finding out who the right customers are, presenting based on your findings, closing based on assumption, or giving multiple options that fits the customer best. And then the upsell, if they talk about additional problems afterwards, because I find a lot of people, after we get through setting up their marketing campaign that they say, well, you know what, I need an admin person right now. We need to set up Zendesk, and it's, you know, and then we tend to throw out extra deals because of that. Because, I mean, the more people that are buying into it, the more we're going to help their companies grow and get it to where it needs to be. And I mean, that's the thing. It's, you know, people will always ask if you are presentable and you care about their well-being versus they see dollar signs in your eyes. You know, if I became a person that was driving towards money, I'd quit sales. I would leave it, because at the end of it, I've seen people chase it all their life and never get happiness out of it. But if you're chasing your dream and you're chasing your belief, and you believe that you're going to be successful with it, you just got to keep doing that, and you will be successful. And if you do have a wall that you're going to hit, give me a call. Don't let your business feel like a prison, guys.
Awesome. And I certainly encourage that. Brent has been an amazing mentor to me in the short time that we've known each other, and you can tell that he cares about these pieces and that trust. And that's why I wanted to have him on today. So thank you so much for being here, Brent. I'm going to make sure that in the comments, we're going to put your contact information. So if people were curious about it, if they have questions for you, that they can reach out. Like I said, I highly encourage it. If you're curious about my boundaries workshop or have any questions about that, I will also toss that in there. Brent, is there anything else you would like to add for people?
Yeah, on April 19th, we do have a webinar. Myself, my partner Leslie, who is the brains behind the Full Prism Group, and our other partner as well with Got Writer's Block, Jessica Bennett. We are launching using LinkedIn Sales Navigator to maximize your return of investment. So we're going to focus on the messages. We got live case studies. We got Leah coming into as well. It's going to be very exciting. It's been something we've used for a very long time, and it's been a long time coming for the business community. So thank you, Leah, for beta testing it with me.
Yes. Well, it's you know, I'm happy being a case study when it works out for me, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's all about our growth at the end of the day. Yeah.
Hey, and Brent, how much is this workshop?
How much is it worth? $20.
Awesome.
So so in the sales world, we used to always say it's a price of a McDonald's meal. And you'll get more out of it. It's more filling for you.
Yeah, it's amazingly great value, guys. I really hope to see you there. And thank you so much for being with us today, Brent. I've had an amazing time, and take care, everyone.
Take care, guys. So just stop.